Sri Sathyanarayana Story in short, Part 1. This auspicious Satyanarayana Katha narration comes from one of the 18 Puranas, the Skanda Purana. It is in the form of a dialogue between Lord Vishnu and sage Narada. Once Narada saw the people suffering as a result of their past deeds. To alleviate these sufferings and bring them salvation, Narada requested Lord Vishnu to show a way for people to come out of suffering due to their previous sinful deeds. Lord Vishnu replied, people can get rid of all sorrows by performing a puja called Satyanarayana Puja. This puja can be performed in any month on a full moon day. One must gather his friends and relatives, perform the puja with devotion, and offer fruits, ghee, milk, curd, butter, wheat flour, sugar, and honey to the gods. After the puja is over, he must read the Satyanarayana Katha and distribute prasad to everybody. If the puja is thus performed, it will bring fulfillment of one's wishes. Particularly in the Kali Yuga, this puja brings contentment. Om Shri Satyanarayana Namaha. End of Part 1. Keep Naivedyam to God. Part 2. Story of a person who was benefited by puja and also punished when he did not keep up promises. Please read to understand do's and don'ts of puja story. 1. Once there lived a very poor Brahmin in the beautiful city of Kashi. Plagued by acute hunger, he used to wander about here and there every day. Lord Vishnu, who was in the guise of an old man, replied, O Brahmin, Lord Satyanarayana grants his devotees wishes and removes their sorrows. So you should perform his puja and reap its benefits. The poor Brahmin immediately resolved to perform the puja. After a sleepless night, he got up early in the morning and went to beg for alms, his mind fixed only on one thing, namely the puja. That day he got a lot of money with which he bought fruits and milk, curd and honey, and performed the puja with his relatives and friends. With Lord Satyanarayana's grace, he shed his poverty and lived a contented life. Every month on the full moon day, he performed the puja and finally attained moksha. Om Shri Satyanarayana Namaha. End of Part 2. Keep Naivedyam. Part 3. A merchant called Sadhu told his wife that they should perform Satyanarayana Puja, which will fulfill their desire to have children. He then resolved to perform the puja after the child was born. Then, by the divine grace, a beautiful daughter was born to Sadhu and his wife Lilavati. They named the child Kalavati. One day, Lilavati reminded her husband of his promise to perform puja. Sadhu told his wife that he would do the puja at the time of his daughter's wedding and got busy with his work. In the meantime, Kalavati grew up and Sadhu found the boy to be a suitable match for Kalavati and celebrated his daughter's wedding. But Sadhu completely forgot about the Satyanarayana Puja and thus angered Lord Satyanarayana, who gave few troubles to Sadhu to remind him to keep his promise of doing puja. Then one day Sadhu went on a business trip with his son-in-law. One day in Ratnapura, some thieves robbed the king's treasury and were running away. The frightened thieves threw the things they had robbed near Sadhu and his son-in-law, who were sleeping under a tree, and escaped. Finding the king's treasure near Sadhu and his son-in-law, the king's soldiers arrested them, threw them into prison. One day, Kalavati stopped at a house where Satyanarayana Puja was being performed. She stayed at that place until the puja was over and ate the prasad that was offered. Kalavati told her mother about Satyanarayana Katha she had in somebody's house heard. Leelavati at once remembered her husband's promise to perform the puja and resolved to observe Satyanarayana Vrata herself. She collected all her relatives and friends and prayed to Lord Satyanarayana to forgive their sins. Lord Satyanarayana was pleased with Leelavati's prayers. He appeared before king in his dream and told him to release the two merchants from prison as they were not the real thieves. The king ordered Sadhu and his son-in-law to be released. Om Shri Satyanarayana Namaha. End of Part 3. Keep Naivedyam. Part 4. Sadhu and son-in-law loaded their boat with the riches given to them by the king and sailed homeward. Lord Narayana wanted the merchants to remind about the puja, took the form of an ascetic, appeared before Sadhu and asked him what he was carrying in his boat. Without realizing that the ascetic was indeed Lord Narayana in disguise, Sadhu replied, we do not have any valuables in the boat except vessels. Whereupon Lord Narayana replied, O Sadhu, so be it. When Sadhu went into the boat, he discovered to his horror that the boat was filled with vessels, just as he had falsely told the ascetic. The two merchants rushed to where the ascetic was meditating. They fell at his feet and repeatedly begged for his forgiveness. Pleased by Sadhu's devotion, the Lord said, Sadhu, you suffer because you have broken your promise of doing puja many times. And Sadhu remembered his promise. Immediately the merchants did the puja there up to their knowledge and with whatever they had. God was pleased and granted his wishes, restoring his merchandise in the boat, and disappeared. The two merchants then joyfully sailed homeward and sent a messenger to their wives to inform them of their safe arrival. At that time, Leelavati and Kalavati were performing Sathyanarayana Puja. Leelavati quickly finished the puja and asked her daughter to do so. She then had prasad, hurried to the seashore to meet her husband. Kalavati, in her eagerness to meet her husband, forgot to eat the prasad and rushed to the seashore. To make them realize the importance of having prasad, Lord Satyanarayana caused the ship and her husband to drown in the sea. Not finding her husband, Kalavati started weeping. Later she realized the fault she had made, not eating prasad. Kalavati rushed back home and had the prasad. When she returned to the seashore, she found to her joy her husband and the boat. Then Sadhu returned home happily with his relatives and performed the Satyanarayana Puja every full moon day. With God's grace, he enjoyed all the comforts in this world and finally attained salvation. Om Shri Satyanarayanaya Namaha. End of part 4. Keep Naivedyam. Part 5. Maharishi Suta continued. Once there was a king called Tungadvaja who underwent a lot of misery after refusing the Satyanarayana Prasad. To come out of misery, he later performed the puja with great devotion. Lord Satyanarayana showered his blessings and the king regained everything he had lost earlier. End of part 5. Naivedyam.